Okay, hi everyone. I'm Ann Thompson. I'm the president of the Women in Cable Telecommunications Washington, D.C. Baltimore chapter. And thank you for coming to the latest WICT Wednesday. And my guest today is Mara Benner, founder of Four Directions Wellness. And we're going to be talking about the benefits of self-care for healing and relaxation, and specifically about Reiki. So Four Directions Wellness is affiliated with the GW Center for Integrative Medicine and helps individuals connect to their personal intuition and subtle energy to guide their healing process. The services include an array of ancient healing techniques, including intuitive coaching, reflexology, meditation, Reiki, energy healing, guided imagery, mindfulness, and so much more. So welcome, Mara. Thank you so much for joining.
Wonderful to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, and this time of year, and especially after this year, I just thought self-care was such a great topic. You know, the holidays can be so stressful for folks, and especially this year. So, however, self-care is one of those terms that is thrown around a lot. And as you mentioned in your blog post on your website, prioritizing self-care in the new year, it's also an often hashtagged, Instagram moment. But what truly is self-care and why is it important?
It's such a great question. So thank you. And I am affiliated with the GW Center. So one of the things I'm so lucky to be doing is training medical students who they themselves need help with their own self-care as they're going through training. And so it's wonderful to be able to kind of branch out and explain to them some of these techniques that you can do very quickly to help support your system. So really overall self-care is, if you think about the airlines when we used to be flying around, you remember that they would talk about placing the oxygen on your own mouth before you applied it to anyone else. And that's really what it's about. It's about the fact that we are in our society moving so quickly that we don't often recognize what's taking place and the messages that our own body, our own emotions, our own spirit is trying to convey to us. And that's a key component of what I do with my clients, is really helping them take that time to listen to themselves and get reacquainted so that they're able to start focusing on the areas of their life that is really calling out for their attention at that point. And there's so many different dimensions to that, but that's a key consideration, is just being able to quiet everything down and then be able to explore at a deeper level what might be taking place. And it's amazing how it can be extremely beneficial, both physically, and research certainly indicates that, but it also helps mentally, emotionally, and just with providing that overall happiness in the life that you're living right now.
Yeah, and I've found, as I've become more aware of where I'm holding stress or, in my stomach, and I'm feeling different things, and I'm getting better at saying, well, what does that mean? Am I holding something in that I shouldn't be? Am I angry about something and I didn't realize it? And then you can kind of be aware of it as it's happening and then move through it. But that takes time. That takes time to be.
It does. And another component that's happening right now is we're in the midst of COVID. And at first, it was as if, okay, we don't have to do the commute necessarily. And so you might have thought you had more time, but somehow like time is becoming just kind of warped in the fact that now again, we're back to multitasking. We may be sitting in yoga pants like I am right now, but at the same point, we don't recognize that we're putting more stuff into our lives and trying to still multitask. And yet your body's probably screaming out, or your emotions or your spirit is calling out to you to take a pause as we're in this period of COVID as well. So it's interesting how we just kind of keep going on the track of multitasking.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And in terms of prioritizing self-care, in the blog post, you mentioned 7 different aspects of life: emotional, I have it written down, emotional, mental, nutritional, physical, sleep, social, and spiritual care. It feels like, because we're so task oriented, that like when I read that, I thought, okay, I need to figure out how to do all of it. But is it really important to try and tackle them all at once, to focus on all of them, or in order to see benefits?
Sure. So, they're all kind of interconnected. And so, as a result, when you start working on one, you're going to find out that you have the benefits across the board. So, for instance, let me give you just a simple example that I give to my clients all the time. And this is the easiest way to kind of figure out where you want to spend your initial time with it, is if you drew a circle right now and thought about your past week and where you spent the time. And so it would equal up to 100%. But let's say you spend 40% sleeping and you spend 10% eating and you're 50% at work, right? Whatever it might be, you kind of do that circle, and then you look and you do another circle and say, what am I missing in my life right now that I really want to incorporate? And that might be trying to socialize as we can right now, or maybe it's the fact that you've wanted to do a deep dive into something spiritual. Might be just going out for a walk. It might be reading. Who knows? It's up to you as to what it is that's most of interest to you.
Mhm.
But when you do that circle about where you really want to spend your time, that's going to be the indicator of which category is really of interest. And so I think that's a nice way of starting it. But being aware that all of these are interconnected and impact your health and well being is also really important just to know.
Yeah, that's a really good idea. In fact, I'm going to, I think, work on that, the two circles, if not tonight, probably first thing tomorrow morning. Um, so, as I mentioned in the intro, of all the services you provide, I am particularly interested in Reiki, having been through level 1, level 2, and now going into my master training with you, but specifically Reiki in terms of self care. So, can you give us a quick overview? What is Reiki and what brought you to it?
Sure. So Reiki is a so it's an ancient Japanese healing technique that for the most part provides relaxation. So again, when I'm talking with clients, one of the things that I recognize, especially here in the DC area, is most individuals are really stuck in what we call from the autonomic nervous system. We're really stuck in our fight or flight. And the amazing thing is, most people do not even realize that they're kind of stuck that way. And until I have a chance to work with them, maybe provide them some Reiki, they'll start to notice, oh, I had that in my shoulders, or oh my goodness, I was holding that in my head. And they just weren't aware of it. But by keeping yourself in fight or flight, your body's in overdrive. So that caffeine, that whatever else might be, might be your choice, is keeping you in that overdrive. So your body truly cannot relax. And the other side of the autonomic nervous system, because you have the sympathetic and the parasympathetic, is that rest and digest.
Mhm.
And so if you're in fight or flight, there's a good chance that your sleep's not very good at the moment, or you might have irritable bowel syndrome because your digestion can't work. So it's really important to kind of have that balance. And then likewise, when we're in our fight or flight, our mind is constantly running. And our mind's wonderful. We need it for analytics. We need it to understand how to get through our day and to get things done. But it also really keeps us anxious and depressed about the future and about the future as well as the past. And so the other side to that is our intuitive or our gut instincts, which really does help us as well kind of move through life. And so it's about connecting into both of those. And so what Reiki does, as well as really any of the ancient healing techniques like yoga or from China, Qigong, or, there's just so many different ways that before we had a healthcare system, there was a way that your culture optimally healed your body. And so it's about figuring out how and what that is, and which approach is actually the one that you prefer. So some people prefer Tai Chi, which is a form of Qigong, and it's more physical. Reiki is just very passive, very relaxing, and it's like amazing, right? Because you just like are gently placing hands on something, and it's like, how does that work that you just get so relaxed, right? You've
Yeah.
experienced it, right? So I love it. I love it too. We have provided it at GW Hospital for 15 years up until COVID. And, the things that were amazing about Reiki was, first of all, we could do it on all floors, all departments. We did it in the psych ward. We did it post surgical. We did it everywhere.
Mm.
Never had a negative impact. There was never a negative side effect to it. But we were known for a few important things. One was we recognized that we helped reduce pain in the short term, just like medication, really, but just in the short term, we were able to reduce pain. So you know how you're in the hospital and they say, "Hey, on a scale from 1 to 10, where's your pain level?" We knew because we tracked it and were able to provide those statistics that we were really impactful in helping to reduce that pain. And the reason is because we took that person from the fight or flight and we got them to a point of relaxation. So that's really why. We were also known to help de-escalate intense emotions like anxiety,
Mhm.
depression, grief. So they called us in to help de-escalate that as well. So it's been really beneficial overall. Doctors loved it. And the only other thing is when I was training the doctors, because as you know, you're kind of just gently placing hands. It's a little hard. It's a little esoteric about what's taking place. But what I loved was when would train the doctors is I would take them in to see a patient, and whether or not you agreed to surgery, you did kind of go through, your body went through possibly some trauma,
Mhm.
and there would be kind of this density around the head. And so the doctors could feel that. We would do a Reiki session for about 15, 20 minutes, and it would all be gone. And the person would report mental clarity or relaxation or other things like that. So it was a way to show cause and effect with it.
Yeah, and that's wonderful. And the stories that I've heard about it are really, really just fascinating and really wonderful also. Um, so I think you've kind of touched on this, but um, it, it I think you have. So Reiki helps with healing just in those aspects of just being able to sort of, I don't want to say separate the mind from the body, but maybe help connect it, if you will, right? Instead of.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I'm trained in different ancient healing techniques. So, Qigong, the chakra system, shamanic, did interfaith, interspiritual seminary. And so, what fascinates me about all these techniques is the ancient cultures recognized that the body and your spirit, your mind, your emotions were all interconnected.
Mhm.
And so the techniques that they use work on all four levels. So it doesn't matter if you're doing Tai Chi or yoga, it's going to work on all of those aspects. Acupuncture does. So
Mhm.
any of these types of alternative or complementary and alternative medicine does. And Reiki does as well. So it's so important because everything's interconnected. So, Anne, you did such a great example of saying that you were possibly meditating or thinking through aspects for your own self, and you knew that in your gut you might be holding on to anger.
Mhm.
And that's really what I do with the clients that I'm working with is help them go deeper into what is that connection because it is all connected.
Yeah,
And so these ancient techniques, if it's Reiki, it's helping to pull it all together. And that's what's so beneficial about it overall.
excellent. Yes, I certainly have found that to be the case. Yes. So beyond Reiki, so what are some other ways that people can begin a practice of self-care?
Yeah, so you have so many different options, and I think that's the other thing. I used to do healthcare policy up on the Hill, and I was a big proponent of the fact that everything had to have a metrics. Every person had to be treated the same, and we had to have protocols. So if you were a diabetic, you needed to go through this specific protocol.
Mhm.
And at the same time, I had the honor of going to China to begin to learn Qigong. And I was doing my own personal journey.
Mhm.
And the thing I realized was everybody's on their own path.
Mhm.
And however you want to call it, spiritual path, healing path, whatever you want to say, all of these techniques as well, I should mention, they really were spiritual before they were healing. So here in the US, we have a habit of calling them healing or fitness. but really they were more spiritual considerations. And so everybody's on their own path, and everyone needs to learn what works best for them, what motivates them the most. It's not a one size fits all.
Mhm.
And so when I have doctors at GW who refer to me a client who has a chronic illness, I'm going to sit down with them to find out what seems to really fit for them. I'm going to do that circle exercise as one example to say there's something that helps provide balance, that really helps center you. And so let's start there. What is that you love to do? Now, some people love to be more physical, so meditation doesn't quite work for them. Some people enjoy meditating, and so Reiki is going to be a possibility for them as well. So some people love to just go out and exercise and run, and so that's how they connect. And so it's really about figuring out what it is for that individual person that works the best for them. But we're trying to get them back over to that rest and digest. So
Mhm.
I'm trying to figure out what is it that helps them find their centeredness, their calmness. And so it may be, some of the ones that we're so familiar with are meditation, mindfulness. Yoga has become very popular, and that's wonderful. Acupuncture, massage. Those are some that are definite. They're known to really be beneficial for the rest and digest.
Mhm.
But again, it's very individual. So we have to kind of work through it and see what works best for people. And where it might be Reiki at the beginning, you
Mhm.
might then transfer to yoga, or you might start combining different ones. And I know I do that. I get bored with one thing, so I switched over to another. It all gets you to the same place. So it's all good.
Absolutely. Yeah, I used to meditate, but now I've started running, but not with music. And I find that to be very meditative because I'm not thinking about my day. I'm not thinking about the calendar. I'm just thinking about where I'm going and my breathing, which is kind of like meditation, only I'm not sitting on a mat.
Yes.
I'm
And hopefully
moving.
you have your eyes open, right?
Yes.
We
Yeah,
don't want you
that would be
closing your eyes.
that would be a little difficult. That would be a little difficult. Well, I want to turn it over to the group to see if anybody had any questions first. Mara. My master question answerer had a meeting and he wasn't able to. I have like a master participant that comes to all of them.
I have a question. So I know that, there's self Reiki versus being administered by another individual. What do you see the effectiveness being, having someone do it to you versus having it done, doing it yourself?
That's such a great question. So, in my line of business, what I'm doing is trying to help you become aware of your own body. And so, I'll give you an example. Doctors know that you know your body better than they know it. And you often are getting indications that something's off balance or off kilter, even before it gets to a point of being a disease or an illness. And so, what I'm trying to do when I'm working with you is to have you begin to really understand what your body's saying, what your emotions are, the whole aspect of who you are. So, in that scenario, self care is wonderful so that you can begin to feel it, to notice the subtle energy, to begin to understand the messages that are coming up. Self care is also wonderful because you're not going to see your practitioner every single day. So whether you do meditation or Reiki, any of that, and the self-care Reiki is just so amazing because in many ways you can be watching Netflix and doing Reiki and it's going to have the same impact. Now, of course, if I were teaching you, I'd be encouraging you to pay attention to what's taking place on your body. But I do say it's okay for you to watch Netflix as well if you need to do that. So, what self care Reiki does is it's keeping your body balanced throughout the days when you aren't going to see the actual practitioner. But I will also say that I can tell when my energy is so depleted that I just need to go see that practitioner to have Reiki. And also, there are times where I just don't want to do anything more for myself and I want to be cared for. And so, it is also wonderful to have a practitioner provide you Reiki or any of these other techniques. So I'm a big proponent of all of it. The other thing I recognize is that people, when they are working with me, say, how often should I meet with you? Is it weekly? Is it whatever? Here's the other thing. You also know best what's taking place with your body. So a lot of this is about empowering you to take back what it is that you already know is happening in your whole body. And so sometimes you're going to have a sense, better than even the massage therapist or anyone else, how frequently you're going to want to go see that practitioner. And so it's really important to start trusting your own instincts on what's needed and how often you want to do that. Does that make sense?
Excellent.
Yes, thank you.
Any other questions for Mara or anything else? Well, then I will mention that Mara does provide a complimentary 1-hour class to learn self-care Reiki. And I will be including a link to the registration details below the video when I post it on our YouTube channel. So, Mara, thank you so much for joining me. This was fun. I always enjoy talking about Reiki and this stuff. So thank you again.
Thank you. It was so much fun to be with you. So thanks very much, Anne.
Excellent. All right. Well, everybody else, have a great rest of your Wednesday and be careful because it's bad out there. The storm is bad. Okay.
Thanks.
Thanks,
Bye.
everyone.